The OECD has just issued a dire global economic forecast for its 34 member countries, slashing growth expectations and observing that the Eurozone may already be in a mild recession. The bleak snapshot comes on the eve of Wayne Swan's mid-year economic forecast, expected to show a further $20 billion hit to government revenue over 4 years. The opposition has already labelled it a crisis mini-budget. And while the government is expected to detail new savings, it's nonetheless portraying tomorrow's statement as a routine update. Political correspondent Tom Eagleton has more from Canberra.
The timing of tonight's OECD report plays straight into the government's hands. It's slashed the growth forecast for its 34 member countries by a fair bit for this year and a lot for next year. But for Australia, the picture's rosy. The OECD's economists say it'll return to a healthy 4% growth rate next year. The drag's coming from Europe. The report says the euro area appears to be in a mild recession and warns of a risk of a further deterioration that would plunge the euro area into a deep recession with large negative effects for the global economy. Tomorrow, Wayne Swan will reveal how all that affects the government's budget situation and his promise to bring it back to surplus next year. It's understood the report will show a Eurozone-inspired $20 billion hit to the budget bottom line over 4 years, mostly through a hit to capital gains tax revenue as the stock market declines. But Tony Abbott says it's government waste that's putting the squeeze on the budget.
This is a government which is always blaming someone else. It's not Europe's fault that Wayne Swan has a problem.
His shadow treasurer appeared to have a contradictory view on that.
We want the government to properly reflect the deteriorating economic situation in Europe in the upcoming budget numbers.
It will, and the $20 billion over 4 years it'll write down tomorrow is comparatively modest compared to the $130 billion over 5 years it wrote down at the start of the global financial crisis. The government's been foreshadowing that there will be budget cuts tomorrow, and the odds are shortening of Wayne Swan getting his surplus next year. Even the opposition's backing away from predicting he won't reach the surplus.
This is a government that will engage in budget gymnastics to try and give the appearance of a budget surplus next year.
And it's still not saying where it's going to find the $70 billion of waste it would cull from the budget.
Well, every time we announce savings, the government steals them. So we're not going to continue to do the heavy lifting for this government.
Very many challenges.
The budget isn't the only thing the government's looking to cut at the moment. It's also trying to shave use of the Murray-Darling River system's waters by 2,750 gigalitres.
This is the first step in the next step towards a new way of managing the system.
We know what happens next, Lauren. We're going to have a massive fight.
This is what you can do with your plan.
The last step backfired when the government announced it wanted up to 4,000 gigalitres returned to the river. In a new draft plan released today, the lower volume to be returned would be phased in over 7 years.
Best time to have a transition for communities is when there's a lot of water in the system. That's certainly true at the moment. And secondly, at a time when you have a strong jobs market within Australia.
But Liberals say the plan's thin on detail.
What we have is a basin plan that can't say where the water will come from and doesn't say where the water will be put to. This is not a plan. This is a Clayton's plan as it's been described.
The Nationals say food producers at the top of the river system should come first.
Does the minister now use tomatoes as things to throw at passing wildlife? Are oranges now merely for juggling?
It gives primacy to the environment, where people and communities have come a poor second.
But the Greens argue the opposite.
An extreme disappointment. It doesn't tick the environmental boxes. It's going to be an extreme waste of money.
The South Australian government also wants more water returned and is threatening High Court action.
We've taken advice and that advice in an appropriate way will be reviewed.
An issue not about to dry up just yet. Tom Eagleton, Lateline.